Hi, Doc.
Yeah, hi.
First of all, it's great that I could hear you in person here in Santa Barbara.
Thank you.
My wife and I are here tonight because my wife is from Fukushima Prefecture. And we spent last year we spent 3 months there because almost everyone that she cares about in Japan is still there. It's hard for us to get good information about what the threat really is.
Yeah.
The public information says that in Sendai, where we were living, the radiation level was 0.06 microsieverts per hour. I'm not saying that's true. So we want to know, I think I know the answer, but I want to ask you. If we want to go live there for a while, a year or two, and help these people that we care about, is it a little dangerous, a lot dangerous, or absolutely crazy, or what?
A lot dangerous. And you should not go back. It's medically contraindicated. You can't help the people. There's nothing you can do to help them. They need to be evacuated. And what the Japanese government didn't do is evacuate the people who are currently living in very, very high radiation areas. You can't help them. And I understand that you would love them very much and want to help them, but there's nothing you can do. All you would be doing is exposing yourself to high danger. Including the food.
Is there some part of Japan that's far enough away that's okay?
Well, I think the south at the moment is okay. However, if there is another earthquake or a hydrogen explosion, it won't be okay.
Yeah.
And the accident hasn't finished.
Right.
So I would not go to Japan.
My question is, what do you have to say about the new nuclear business that's waiting in the wings?
Well, the Generation 3 reactors, which are what they're building now in South Georgia, which is an AP1000, which is still a light water reactor like the ones you have here, but it's cheaper because it's got less steel and less concrete in it, and it's called an eggshell reactor in the industry, so it could easily have an accident. It's very dangerous. But the other ones they're talking about are fast reactors. Now, so when you fission uranium in a reactor, plutonium is made, which is why they fissioned uranium in the first place, because you only need 10 pounds to make a nuclear weapon. Each reactor makes 500 pounds of plutonium a year. And there are only two elements that fission, i.e. equals E equals mc squared, uranium-235 and plutonium. So what the physicists have been dreaming about forever is to take the spent fuel rods, which are so radioactive, if you stand next to one and it's 1/2 inch thick and 12 feet long, 4 seconds, you'll get such a dose of gamma radiation you'll die within 2 weeks.
Sure.
Take those fuel rods and chop them up by remote control into small pieces and dissolve them in concentrated nitric acid. And from that lethal solution, you precipitate out the plutonium using kerosene and various other chemical procedures. So you get the plutonium, which is great because you can make bombs with it, or you can fashion it into new fuel rods and make a reactor with plutonium instead of uranium. And it has to be cooled by liquid sodium. Now, liquid sodium, for those who are chemists, you will know that it reacts with air and water and explodes. So you mustn't have any leaks or holes in your pipes or you lose your reactor and your coolant. Now, 10 pounds of plutonium is critical mass. So if you lose your coolant and the plutonium uses its geometric status and it sort of clumps together, you're going to get critical mass. And you could get an explosion of 100 tons of plutonium when 1/1,000,000th of a gram is surely carcinogenic. In fact, when they injected it into beagle dogs, there wasn't a dose low enough that didn't give all the dogs cancer, 10 to the -9 grams. So you would have the most monstrous nuclear explosion the world has ever seen, scattering plutonium for the four winds. Now, that's what the physicists are on about. Now, the other thing to know is they say, well, it's the way to get rid of plutonium. You hear that?
Right.
Right. Only 9% of the plutonium fissions. And it turns into strontium-90. Well, it only lasts 600 years, so it's a great way to get rid of radioactive waste because plutonium lasts for 500,000 years. Think of the logic. Strontium-90 lasts for 600 years, but only 9% fission, so you're left with 98% 91% of your plutonium. So it's an absolute fabrication, and the physicists are really, what can I say about them?
I think you know that California is mandated now by a new law to be 1/3 renewables by 2020. And this past year, the state electric grid operator released a study. Their results showed that California now has an oversupply of energy. So, in fact, we do not need these 2 reactors.
Yep.
They didn't study or release results on the nuclear per se, but when you look at the overall picture, we don't need them. So could you talk a little bit more about how we can shift to clean renewables?
It's all there, the prescription for survival.
Okay.
It's easy, but you've got to get your politicians to represent you and not the corporations, and that means a lot of energy, and you've got to get to know them and make friends with them and take doctors with you in white coats to teach the politicians the dangers and to make them read the book. And if you don't, you're not using your democracy, and you shouldn't really live here. And I'm being tough with you now, but you know, if you do that, you can change the whole country.
Thank you.
The politicians are your representatives, and it's your responsibility to educate them.
Thank you, I believe you.
My physician is urging me to get mammograms, every 2 years, and bone density scans. And also we have these cell phone towers all over.
Okay. If you do have really severe osteoporosis in your family history, you probably need to get an occasional bone density. Mammograms are they're a problem, they're problematic. The breast is a very radiosensitive organ, and little girls in Hiroshima who were irradiated before they had any breast tissue at all, as they matured, have a higher than normal incidence of breast cancer because their little nidus of cells were affected by the radiation. The radiation you get from mammograms now is lower than it used to be, but I would strongly suggest that you don't get your breasts x-rayed every 2 years, and be very, very careful about it. When I do get mammograms, I march into the radiologist's office and I said, "What's a dose?" And they don't know, and I make them look up the dose. But that doesn't matter because you've already had your dose of radiation. There's a lot of literature now, and I'd Google the literature on mammography, because they often give false positives, so people have lumpectomies, or sometimes they've had mastectomies. Sorry, I'm losing the plot here. And so they're problematic, and be very careful. Phones, there now is fairly compelling evidence, according to neurosurgeons, that people who use their cell phones a lot have a higher than normal incidence of brain tumours on the side they use their cell phones. And that's coming in more and more. Children are very sensitive to them. It's radio frequency. And so children should not ever use cell phones, ever. They should be banned. Of course, there's a huge amount of money invested in the cell phone industry. They shouldn't put those towers next to kindergartens or churches or the like. But we are being doused with radio waves continuously, and that does impact upon the cells of the body.
Thank you.
Microwaves are okay if you've got a microwave oven, as long as the seal is firm.
I just wanted to say my partner is Japanese, and we have many friends, including lawyers, who have returned to Fukushima to defend nuclear plant workers, and so they're putting themselves in danger every day by being there. And I know that from my own research that the Japanese government has a history of being sensitive and concerned about the opinion of international society. So I'm wondering, is there any way we can use that momentum? What can people on the outside do, non-citizens do, to push or promote some sort of more openness, transparency, and provide some sort of assistance, get people out, even if they can evacuate them now at this late date?
I think you've got to work that out. You're asking me. I don't know. I think the Japanese government at the moment is absolutely refractory to anything. They've lied perniciously. They are paid for by TEPCO. The cover-up has been really obscene. If you go to my website, nuclearfreeplanet.org, you will find a huge amount of literature and articles on Fukushima, and you'll be able to follow it pretty closely.
Okay.
But I don't have the answer, love. I think Japan's on the downward slope. And when it happened, 2 days after it happened, I got this dread feeling in the pit of my stomach. Oh my God, there's absolutely nothing we can do about this. Nothing. And that's what nuclear power means. Nothing we can do. And I used to download every few hours and there'd be 500 new emails. What am I going to do? What do I feed my baby? Where do I live? There's nothing we can do except close the remaining 404 reactors in the world. And that's you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I was wondering if you've considered talking to Rupert Murdoch. It seems to me he has about as much power as Obama. And the way you've explained this tonight, it seems like the potential for a nuclear war and everything is so great that it's localized now, but sounds like there's no safe place to go. Really.
No, there isn't.
So that's an appeal to these billionaires that are making these decisions where they're going to use these bombs. It's going to hurt them too.
Well, Rupert, he created my career in 1971 when I led the movement against French atmospheric tests. He quoted me in front-page editorials in The Australian, which is our national paper. And then when I started on uranium mining and nuclear power in 75, he black-banned me. He's been black-banning me forever. I did have a hope that when he married Wendy Deng, and he had 2 little girls who he clearly loves, that common sense would prevail, but it's not. He's a very damaged specimen. His father, when he died, Sir Keith Murdoch, left the Adelaide News to Rupert, which was not what he wanted. He wanted the Melbourne News, etc. So he's, we know, extremely ambitious, and I guess I'd have to say a sociopath. 1 in 25 people are sociopaths. They're charming, brilliant, erudite, but they have no moral conscience. And I guess that Rupert would fit into that. Unfortunately, he's 80, but his mother's 101. So that bodes ill for the planet. She's a very fine woman, Dame Elizabeth Murdoch. Yeah.
I understand you have a very quick question.
Yeah. My question is, I was just curious, are you familiar with HAARP?
No, I'm not really familiar with HAARP, and I haven't looked into it, okay?
Okay.
So I can't comment.
Just curious.
And your last question was iodine. Now, in every medicine cabinet in your house, there should be potassium iodide tablets, so that if there is a meltdown here, before the radiation reaches you, it has to be done before it reaches you, you take the inert potassium iodine, which supersaturates your thyroid gland, so radioactive iodine is not taken up and you don't get thyroid cancer. You only take it once and you have to take it before the cloud reaches you, but unfortunately they probably won't tell you it's happened because it comes to you immediately and they're in such a state of panic and confusion they won't let you know. And you can't evacuate the population anyway, but don't take it now, only take it just before and only take it once. But it only blocks the uptake of radioactive iodine, it doesn't block anything else of the several hundred isotopes that are released from a reactor. Yeah, they would take a dose, but you would need to ring your health department and ask them what dose the children have. In fact, you should be able to get them from your pharmacy, and the dose should be written on the side of the tablets. And the nuclear industry should make it their business to make sure that all of you have potassium iodide tablets in your cabinets.